Hey everybody, this is Tommy with AldermanFarms, and I've got a sidekick with me this evening, Corey, and he's here for a reason. You guys who watch us all the time know that he just got back from a fantastic trip to Ecuador. It's the second time Corey's been to Ecuador. I've only been once. I hope to get to go back again sometime soon. And we are very excited to have a guest, a far-off guest with us tonight, and that is Gary Pate of Pate Ministries. Gary and his lovely wife Dina are the couple that was the missionary couple that our team went and assisted in the mountains down there, bringing the gospel to the children and the people in Ecuador. And so I just want to tell you, before I bring Gary on, Corey had so many good things to say about both of them. Corey just came back telling me, he said, "Daddy, you could see that their heart was pure, and it was just obvious that they were that God had called them there, and they were doing the service of the Lord." So I was so impressed with the report that Corey brought back of Gary that I'm fixing to do something that you, our viewers, have never seen me do. I'm going to take off my LSU hat. And it has nothing to do with the fact that Gary is a Gator fan. Nobody's perfect. But I'm going to put on a Pate Ministries hat. How about that? All right, so Gary, thanks for joining us. How are you?
Well, I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, Tommy. And Corey, thank you for joining us.
Where are my manners? I should have said, ¿Cómo estás?
Bien, todo bien, gracias.
Good. Well, Gary, take a few minutes, as long as you want, and tell our viewers about your ministry, Pate Ministries, and I believe it's for the Children Ecuador. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. And thank you for the opportunity. I'll do my best not to stumble or stutter. I'm not a professional speaker, but my wife and I, Dina, have been married for 32 years. We have a son who is 30 years old. He lives in Virginia. He's an associate pastor. And we have a daughter who lives in Okinawa, Japan. She serves with Air Force JAG in the United States Air Force. Dina and I started doing short-term missions about 28 years ago. And from the very first trip, we felt God's calling to missions. And for many, many years, we prayed that God would use us. And it wasn't until 2010, just some 7 years ago, that God actually gave us a peace about doing this full-time. We were in the business world. My wife was a nurse, and I was in the business world. I was in logistics management for many years, and I spent the latter part of my years in some kind of construction management. But we took missions trips, short-term trips, like Corey just came back from. Every year, we'd set aside a week of our vacation to go on one of these short-term missions trips. And when our children were 11 and 12, we actually started taking them because we wanted them to have an understanding what it was like to work in a third world country. And we worked in about 12 different countries over all those years. And about 15 years ago, we came to Ecuador for the first time. And for whatever reason, God just put a really special place in our heart for Ecuador 15 years ago. I can't tell you why Ecuador as opposed to those other 11 countries, but that's what he did. So in 2010, Dina and I came down to Ecuador by ourselves. We did not lead a team or bring a team, which was usually what we did. And in 2010, being down in Ecuador for a week in the jungle on one of those short-term missions, we really felt like the Lord said, now is the time. And I've never heard God speak audibly or seen God in person, but you know when the Holy Spirit speaks to your heart, you know it's the Lord. And we went back to the States, and I worked for a Christian employer, and he knew my heart for missions. He'd been to Ecuador with me before. And I went back and told him, I said, "Rick, I'm going to be resigning. I think God is calling Dina and I to full-time missions now." The interesting thing for Dina and I in 2010 was we were making more money than we'd ever made. We had a 6-digit income. Our kids were out of college, and we had no debt other than the mortgage on our house. We loved to travel. We're pretty adventurous. We were still going to support missions and support missionaries, but we were going to start traveling and just enjoying life because we didn't, up until that time, thank God, really wanted to use us in the capacity of full-time missions. And so we went back and we began to sell everything that we owned on Craigslist and different things. And God, within a year or so, just allowed us to raise the money that we needed to go to language school. I was 49 at the time. And I never liked school growing up, and I certainly didn't want to go back to school at 49, but I realized that I needed to learn as much Spanish as I could. And so in 2012, June of that year, we left the United States. We went to Costa Rica, where we lived for a year. We went to language school full-time. And then in December of 2013, we moved to Ecuador, where we have been living now going on 4 years this December. And it's just a unique story. You know, I tell people when I speak in churches that the truth is I never graduated from high school. I never finished college. And but the thing is, I think God is not looking for our abilities, but he's looking for our availability. And I think when we open ourselves up to the Lord and just surrender ourselves to him, and he knows our hearts, then he takes us for what we are. I sometimes think of the Apostle Paul, who said, I'm the least of these. And so that's where I place myself, as an individual that never finished high school, that never went to college. I worked really hard. I had high moral values, high character values, and so I excelled in the business world. And like I say, when Dina and I left the States, we had a 6-digit income with no debt other than our mortgage. And so it was at a point in our life, Tommy, where you know, it cost us the most from a monetary standpoint to do what we're doing now. But I look back the 4 years that we have been living here full time, and it's amazing to see the doors that God has opened for us. We are working with about 1,000 kids a month. Many of the children, Corey can testify to, live in some really poor villages where most of them don't even have a refrigerator. You know, there could be 5 to 10 people living in a little mud hut or concrete little house with a bathroom outside. And so we go into these villages on a weekly basis, and we go to the same village every Monday. Tuesday, we go to the same village, but different than Monday. And Wednesday, likewise. We go to the same village every Wednesday, but different Monday and Tuesday, and Thursday, likewise. And we basically go into these villages with these really poor children and their families, and we gather the kids together, and we introduce the team, if there's a team here, like Corey and them a few weeks ago. And then we basically sing a couple of songs with them. We give them a chance to quote a memory verse from the Bible that they learned this week. And then we teach them a little Bible lesson from the Bible, 10 or 15 minutes long on their level. And then after that, we have a little craft that we do with the kids every week. And on that craft is a memory verse for them to take home so they can learn it or memorize it for the next week. And then we give them a prize for memorizing that memory verse. After that, we play games with them. We give them some drinks and some cookies and snacks. And even once a month, we have like a birthday party. Most of these kids have never seen a birthday cake. So once a month, we celebrate the birthdays. We take a birthday cake up there. We even take a piñata with some candy in it. And anyway, it's just a neat time to share about the love of Christ. And, you know, when we first go into a village, we tell the leader of the village there, we say, listen, we are not here to give you monetary things or money. We are dependent on Jesus, and we want to teach you to be dependent on Jesus. And we also tell them that, you know, what we're going to teach is moral values, character values. We're going to use the Bible as our roadmap, and we're going to use Jesus as our example. What better example would we want our children to follow than Jesus? And what better roadmap would we want our children to follow than the Bible? And so it's just amazing. I tell people all the time, right now we have over 25 teams a year that come down and work with us, anywhere from 2 people to 15, big teams, little teams. But I tell the teams, this is not my work. This is not Dina's work. It's the Lord's work. We are totally surrendered to God's will. We pray every day that we would not miss God's will or get out of God's will or get in his way. So we're grateful that God has given this opportunity to reach out to some children and some folks that nobody was working with when we came. And I'm convinced that if we quit working with them next week, no one would go where we go, because in the city we live in, there's many missionaries. But to get to the villages where we work, we drive up to 2 hours one way. Sometimes we spend 4 hours behind the wheel of a vehicle to work with children for 2 hours. And so we work in very remote villages. And, again, it's just God's work. It's his ministry. And we're just, while days are challenging and sometimes we wake up and we look in the mirror and we think, man, what are we doing here? When you see these little children, 3 and 4 years old, memorizing God's word, we just believe that the Bible says God's word won't return void. So all these other things we do, we can give them cookies and Kool-Aid and we can play games with them, and that stuff's going to go away, but God's word does not return void. And so it's just, we see it as an opportunity that God is allowing us to be a small part of this.
our hearts were drawn years and years ago. I don't even remember how long it's been. Well, it's been over 20 years because at the time, Corey's 20, and we only had our first two kids at the time when we were living in Louisiana. In the church we were attending to had a connection with some missionaries in Guadalajara, Mexico, and we didn't want to. Our two kids at the time, I mean, they were tiny toddlers, and we didn't want to risk taking them down there. So Patty and I actually went on separate trips because our church was going to make more than one trip. And boy, our hearts were just really drawn toward the Latin American people. They were so the poverty in our eyes was abject. I mean, there were places where you would walk past what you thought was a huge pile of crumpled up sheet metal or tin, and only to realize there was a family living in that pile, that it was a house. And they did have some basic cinder block structures. I'll never forget the way they got electricity was they had these naked wires that they would fashion into a hook and throw them over the power lines that were running through the neighborhood, and I don't know if anybody ever got electrocuted. Probably not. They probably know what they're doing, but anyway, they were so gracious to us. These gringos come in there, and if you try to speak their language, they just were so patient, so appreciative that you were trying to speak to them in their native language, and it was just amazing. And then, of course, I've had the opportunity to go to Ecuador. Patty hasn't. And we've got connections in Colombia because our son-in-law is a Colombian native. And so we've had, I don't know that the Lord is pulling us to go on the mission field or not, but I know that our hearts have both sort of been intertwined with Latin America for a long time. So anyway, I know some of what what you're talking about when you talk about I know it's not all about emotion, but the feeling you get when you're with those people every day. So have you guys been? You're based out of Cuenca, is that right?
Yeah, and let me say this too, because you said something a minute ago that kind of hit the bell with me, was that when our children were really small, I mentioned that we started taking them with us when they turned 11 and 12. But when our children were a younger age, we did what you and Patty did. We took turns every year. One year I would go, Dina would stay home. The next year Dina would go, I would stay home. And so even when our kids were small, we did exactly what you did. And then at age 11 and 12, we started taking them. But yeah, we're based out of a city called Cuenca. It's about the third largest city in Ecuador. It's about 500,000 people there. And that's kind of serves as our base. And so it's a neat opportunity that God's given us, because we can live in Cuenca where the accommodations for our teams are a little bit easier for folks that aren't used to living in a third world country. But at the same time, we drive to these villages where there's endless opportunity. And so, I hear you talk about the electrical wires. It's amazing here. They still do the same thing. They don't have any kind of plugs that you plug into a wall. They take these two little metal ends coming out, and they'll stick it in a socket or tie it to something. And it's amazing. I don't know how they keep from getting electrocuted, but again, they've been doing it that way for years, and they tend to know what they're doing. And oftentimes, especially in the beginning, I would say, "Man, that's not the way we do it back in the States." And then I have to remind myself I'm not in the States. And the longer I live here, the more I appreciate these people and the way they survive. I mean, they don't throw anything away. I mean, like if you need something for a vehicle, there's no such thing as a junkyard here, because I'm telling you, they're gonna make it last until it just doesn't exist. And so it's amazing the ingenuity of these people to survive. And a lot of the people we're working with, Tommy, Corey can relate to this. Their day-to-day survival. A lot of the people we work with in the mountains, they farm, they grow what they eat, and what they don't eat, they barter for something else. And they could care less about tomorrow. They have no idea what it's like to go to Walmart or even a grocery store, because In the villages we work in, there are no stores. There may be a little store that sells bread or water or something like that, but there's no stores. And if these people want to go to some place where there's a store, they have to catch a bus early in the morning that comes up there and then catch the bus back in the afternoon. And a lot of times that bus only comes one time a day. And so it's amazing just how these people survive day to day. And like I say, most of them don't have refrigerators or anything anyway. So, but they have no idea what it's like to shop for tomorrow. They just want to survive today. And if tomorrow comes, they'll worry about tomorrow. So it's just a very interesting lifestyle.
And, to many of our viewers who may or may not know what it's like to have to survive from day to day, it may conjure up feelings of panic or distress. But I haven't asked you this, I haven't asked Corey about it. But based on our experiences in the poorest of the poor areas of Guadalajara, I'm willing to bet that there's a lot of contentment among those people as well.
Yeah, these people have no idea that they're poor. I mean, we think they're poor, but they have no idea. They are very content and very happy. And I mean, I remember years ago, a friend of mine was down, and he brought a couple little Hot Wheel cars, and I remember several little boys playing together, and he gave one of them one of the Hot Wheel cars, and it was amazing to see how these little boys just share the Hot Wheel car. And it was not too much longer after that one of the boys' mothers called him and said, "Hey, come home, come home." And I think it was the boy that my friend had given the Hot Wheel car to, and he left the car with his other buddies while he went home. And I think, in the States, man, if our kids don't have iPads and iPhones and PlayStations and stuff like that, they don't know what to do. But yeah, they're so content. And, again, they're so happy with what they have because they don't know what they don't have.
Right. And they actually said some of the folks that we talked to in Guadalajara actually expressed pity for us, encumbered by so many material concerns. I mean, and they weren't being smart aleck. They weren't. I mean, these believers down there prayed for the burden that we carried, having so many material concerns. And I thought that was very humbling. It was a humbling experience.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we are really careful about. We've done missions, like I say, short term for 20-something years, and we've been on these trips where the missionary or the national knew we were coming, and they kind of put together a little dog and pony show, and they got 300 kids together, and we worked with them, and I'm not sure anything happened after that. In the communities that we're working in the villages, we're there every week, whether a team is there or not. And we have a relationship with these people. And a lot of these villages, Tommy, we're working in, there's no evangelical church. There's no evangelical presence except what we bring once a week.
There is now.
And so it's incredible again. Yeah, no, exactly. And because, years ago, man, my desire was, God, I want to go where people have not heard the word. They've not heard the gospel. I want to go into the jungle. And a couple of years ago, after God moved us to these particular villages, again, it was just like the Lord said to me one day, I've taken you to a place where they really don't know who I am. They may see a picture on the wall and they know who Jesus is, but they don't understand a relationship with Jesus.
We could probably sit here and talk for hours about this, but there's actually a specific reason that I wanted to get you on this call and on this video for our viewers, and that is an email that you sent to Stephanie Freeman, who was part of the coordination of our team coming down there with you guys, that you've got a very heavy burden for a very specific need for one particular family down there. And I've got pictures that I'm going to overlay here shortly during part of the time when you talk, so our viewers can get to know these folks. But I want you to tell us a little bit about what you know about the need, and what as far as what they need, and then what you believe God is leading you to do about it, and then tell us how we in America and our viewers can join hands with you to make it happen.
Yeah, we started going to a new village about 2 months ago. This village is about an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and a half outside of Cuenca one way. And we were started doing our little Bible club up there that we do on Mondays, and we learned of a family where the mother is in the hospital with a brain tumor, and the father, he owns a couple of cows, and he milks them, and he farms, and that's how he survives. And so we just felt impressed to buy them some staple goods. In other words, we bought them a 50-pound bag of rice, we bought them some milk and some oil and some tuna fish and some noodles and just basic essentials because again, they don't have refrigeration. And when we took it to the home, if that's what you want to call it, of this family has 8 kids. The oldest is 20 years old, and he never finished the 6th grade. He's taking care of the siblings while his mother's in the hospital, and the father is at the hospital helping with the mother. And when we went to their house, Tommy, it was nothing more. I just can't describe how inhumane it was. There was just mud floors. There was water in the floor. It was 45 degrees. They had wooden structures with big holes in them. They didn't even have a bathroom. They didn't have a kitchen. They had a little thing outside that they cooked on with sticks underneath it. And they had roosters and chickens and dogs running in and out of these little wooden structures with the holes in them. And 3 of the kids sleep together in a twin-size bed. They don't have any jackets or blankets. And, I mean, it was just, in my eyes, I've seen a lot in 27 years, but this was just almost inhumane. And on the way back, again, we're not one-week missionaries. On the way back, man, my wife was just crying and bawling. And we knew that we needed to do something, and we just began to pray. And I almost just felt like the Lord said, if we could get a concrete foundation and some concrete walls up, at least we can get them off the mud and the water and, just do something very basic. Build them 3 10-by-10 bedrooms with a little living quarters and then build them a bathroom. Then at least they wouldn't be in the mud and the water and they wouldn't have holes in their walls where these are little kids. I mean, little kids, and the temperature up where they live is 10 and 11,000 feet of elevation. It gets cold up there at night. Yeah, it's cold in the day, but much less at night.
I don't know how they're not all in the hospital. I know that I realize I got to give them credit and of course God credit. I know that they're probably to a certain degree acclimated, and resistant due to that acclimation. But still, I mean, I can't imagine living in those conditions, not being attacked by pneumonia all the time, and I would imagine that's pretty much a death sentence.
Yeah, Tommy, I'm not,
that environment.
I'm not sure you or I or anyone else who's going to watch this video would survive up there. I think just the fact that they are a little bit, just the fact they're a little bit acclimated to it. But the thing is, they have never asked for anything. This family has never asked for anything. And so when this first was impressed on my heart, the first thing we did was went to the community leaders. And we said, hey, we just feel led to do this because we have to be very careful that we don't paint a picture that we are gringos with a lot of money and we're not going to build everybody a new house. That's not what we're about. That's not what we do. But again, this was a special situation to where, man, this family was just, it was terrible. And so, I put that little email together with my wife and we put those pictures together and we sent it out and we just figured, we'd let the Lord speak to people's heart. People can give through our 501c3. We have a 501c3 in the States called For the Children Ecuador, Pate Ministries. It's based out of Callahan, Florida, the little podunk town we're from. And so we figured that God would speak to hearts and we would be able to help this family. So we've given them some food and stuff to help them that way physically with their stomachs. And we're in the process of the next week or so buying some jackets and some blankets and some things like that we can take up there to them. And then our next goal, of course, is to help build this little concrete structure. And when I talked to a pastor up there in the area, there's no evangelical church up there, but there is a believer who's a pastor in another area. When I talked to him, he really thought it was a good idea to let some of the other believers, although there are not many, but to let some of the other believers actually do the labor of constructing the house. And so that's the reason that we're able to construct this little house that the pictures of that you saw for about $7,500. About
$7,500. Okay.
Yeah.
That wouldn't get you, but that wouldn't get you much probably in Callahan, Florida. It wouldn't get you much in Brookhaven, Mississippi either. To think that for that little money, how much security you can provide, for a family. It's just a shame not to do it. I mean, it's just a shame not to do it.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, we're not building them anything nice. We're going to build them a concrete foundation with some concrete block walls, and they're going to have 3 10 by 10 bedrooms. They're going to have a little kitchen area smaller than 10 by 10, and a little living area smaller than 10 by 10. So we're basically talking 5 rooms. And then outside there will be a bathroom, and someone might say, well, why do they build a bathroom outside? Well, that's just the way they do it in Ecuador. They don't put bathrooms inside, they put them outside. And so, yeah, I mean, that was just one of the deals that the Lord kind of laid on our hearts, that we needed to, in this particular situation, in a humanitarian aid way, help these folks.
Well, our viewers have been seeing the pictures that I've overlaid while you were talking, and I'm guessing, though, as is always the case with a photograph. Corey showed us all the photographs he took, and I know from my trip to Ecuador and my trip to Colombia and all that the photographs never do the beauty justice, but they probably never do the desperation justice either. And so I'm guessing that although the photos are better than not having any, the photos that the viewers have seen, I just want to plant the seed to let you understand that those photos are not doing justice to the urgency of the situation. So I know that you are able to accept donations via PayPal. Is that correct?
That is, yes. We have a PayPal set up under For the Children Ecuador or Pate Ministries. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know what the best way to put that out there is, but certainly if they go to our website.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, if they go to pateministries.org, P-A-T-E, Pate, and then ministries.org, on our website, there's a donate button. And the donate button allows a person to subscribe or to donate. The donate is a one-time donation. The subscribe is where they could set something up every month on a certain day of the month for the same amount. So they can do it either way at pateministries.org. And then just hit the donate button, and that'll take you to the PayPal tab.
All right. Well, you've told them everything they need, but in addition, I will put all that information in the description of this video, so our viewers know. That's something we routinely say. There are links in the description. So I'll put a link to the website. I'll also see if I can put some direct links to the PayPal accounts. I'll also put because they can send checks. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, there is. And what I'll do is I'll send you something, Tommy, if that's okay, with ways to give, because there's writing a check, there's PayPal, and then what a lot of people are using today is what they call bill pay, where basically they set it up with their banking institution. It doesn't cost them anything. The bank cuts the check and provides the envelope and the stamp. And so there are 3 different options, and I will make sure you have those.
Great. Yeah, do that. And let me ask you this, because again, the main reason I wanted to talk about this was for this specific need for this family to do our best to try to get you to $7,500 as fast as possible. But the viewers out there who are watching this, they may be feeling led to contribute on an ongoing basis. And you mentioned that there's an option through PayPal or bill pay to send a little bit of money or a lot of money every month. So if somebody feels led to do that, tell them what their money will go for. What will that money be used for?
Yeah, that money will go for helping provide the snacks and the drinks and the kids clubs. Every year, my wife came up with something a couple of years ago of giving out these backpacks when the kids go back to school. And what we do in the backpacks is we give them everything they need to go to school with. We check with the government. We find out what they need. And we buy a little inexpensive backpack. We buy everything that goes in it. Then we put a full Spanish Bible in it. And again, keep in mind, many of these people that live up where we work, first of all, they don't have the economic means to even buy the school supplies. And if they do, they have to travel up to an hour or 2 hours into the city by bus, and then they have to come back. And so we give these children the backpacks, and I'm telling you, we don't have enough time during this conversation for me to just tell you the things that have come out of that. But I'm telling you, when you give one of these children one of these little backpacks valued at $12 to $15, man, you would have thought you gave them a Mercedes-Benz, and they don't even know what a Mercedes-Benz is. I mean, yeah, they are so excited, and their parents are so excited. And again, it's just building relationship. And so we do different things like that during the year. At Christmas, we give the little girls like a little doll, and it's not like a Barbie doll that costs a lot of money. It's a very inexpensive little doll. We may give the little boys a $3 soccer ball. And again, man, I'm telling you, just giving these kids a soccer ball or a doll, man, you would have just, you thought you just gave them the world. And it's amazing. Corey can tell you, with all the teams that we come down here, they come down here thinking they're going to be blessed, be a blessing, and they get way more blessed than they do. They get way more blessed than being a blessing. And so it's just, a lot of that money that is giving on a regular basis. Dean and I do not work jobs down here. We live here by faith, and some of that money goes to help us pay for the vehicle. Again, one of the reasons that we are working in these areas is because we have a vehicle that would get us there. If we did not have the vehicle, we would not be able to get there. So we have the vehicle costs and just different things we provide for the children and the communities. And like I said, this family that we're talking about specifically, we took them a bunch of staple goods and food and different things like that. That goes towards that. We're going to buy them some blankets and some jackets. That money, it's ongoing stuff like that that we are able to help these families in these communities. And, I would invite any of your viewers or listeners that if they ever have a desire to come down to Ecuador to contact us. And, we have about 20, 25 teams a year that come. We've had individuals as old as 84 years old down here, and then we've had families come together. And so we have some different stipulations for different situations. But Ecuador is a beautiful country. It's very safe. It's only 4 hours from Miami, so it's not like you're going across the world. And it's very safe. And again, it's just it's a beautiful part of God's creation.
So let me just clarify something for the viewers again. Talking about the money that they would be. I know the answer to this, so just humor me. I've got a funny sense of humor. So I'm just assuming that the cars that you guys drive into these villages is also not a Mercedes-Benz, right?
That is correct. We drive we drive what's called an H1 Hyundai van. And so the last vehicle we had before that was an older 2008 Mazda B250. So, yeah, what we are driving is just what it takes to get us by. And so, yes, sir, it's nothing at all like what we would be driving in the States if we were still there living in the world we lived in previously.
Yeah. So, folks, if you are feeling like you might want to contribute, of course, of all, if you need more information, I'm sure you can get in touch with Gary through his website. And grill him, ask him all the questions that you want. I'm sure he'd be happy to share. But you can rest assured, just even right now at this point, that the money that you send, every penny of that, is going directly into the ministry, either directly, into the lives of the Ecuadorian people, or to help the process of Gary and Dina getting to those people. And I think you can rest assured about that. So, Corey, is he telling the truth about being blessed more than?
Yeah, he is. It's changed the way you look at things. It really does. And
this is a shock to our viewers to learn that Corey can talk.
Yeah. Well, it's just it'll just melt your heart, man, to see what the littlest things will do for those kids, and it's just that's what made the trip for me, is just seeing the joy that we were able to provide for them with just sharing the simplicity, but also the enormity of the love of Jesus. So yeah, it'll change.
And seeing the smiles on the faces of those kids who, if you just look at it from a worldly perspective, you would think they don't have much to smile about, but they're smiling from ear to ear, and.
Tommy, in the pictures that you're putting up on your video there, you'll see a little kid with a wheelbarrow handle in his hand. And, he's playing with that thing, and he's so content. And, it's falling apart. And, in the States, we would have had that thing at the dump 10 years ago. But, again, they take the littlest things and make the most out of them. And, like Corey said, it's the littlest things that make these kids happy. And, the one thing that I don't want to leave out is that any gift that is giving is tax deductible. We are a 501c3, in the United States of America. And so we're legalized by the IRS. And so we are able to offer tax deductions for those who need it, or actually we're required to give them. So I just want to make sure that people understand that all gifts are tax deductible.
Awesome. So what are the ways that people can follow what you're doing? You're on Facebook, right?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that question. Yeah, one way they can follow us is on Facebook at Pate Ministries, Pate Ministries. We post a lot of pictures there on a regular basis. And the other way that they can do it is if they're interested, if they send me an email, and I'll let you post my email address, or they can send us a message on Facebook. We send out a quarterly newsletter 4 times a year. So we do not bombard people. We are not an advertising agency, but 4 times a year we mail out a newsletter. We also email it. But what we've learned is that sometimes emails from Ecuador don't get to the recipient. So if a person wants to receive that email newsletter, again, 4 times a year, we will mail it to them. We have folks in the States where we make the newsletters here in Ecuador. We have a guy in the States who prints them. And then we have a church who helps us by sending them out, mailing them. And so if they want to keep up with us, Facebook, that would be one way. And then the other way is subscribe to our newsletters. Again, you're only going to get them 4 times a year. And so that's two good ways.
So in order to do that, they have to email you, or is there a way to subscribe via your website?
Yeah, there is a way to subscribe via our website. There is a way to do that. And so, yeah, you can do that, or you can send us a Facebook message, or you can send us an email. And it would be great if somehow they just mention your name. And that's how they came to know us, because in my contact list, my database, when we speak in churches, what we do is we put the name of the church that we speak in when the people want to receive our emails or newsletters. That way we can kind of know who they're affiliated with. The other thing I'd like to mention, if it's okay, is we come back to the States for 3 months a year. While we're in the States, we have 3 Ecuadorians who work with us full time. They continue to do the Bible clubs while we're in the States. But when we're in the States, we're speaking to small groups, men's groups, women's groups, churches. So if any of your listeners have a small group, or they think their church may be interested in hearing our story, we're not going to come begging for money, although that's what it takes for us to survive down here, along with a lot of prayer. But if they're interested in us coming and sharing, we would more than willing be open to that. I think Jeff has invited us to come and speak at y'all's church or his church. And so, again, we're not going to come beating the doors down for money.
It ain't his church. I don't know what he's been telling you. It ain't his church.
Well, the Lord's church. That's probably a mispronunciation words on my part, the Lord's church. But anyways, we just love to share our story. We feel like we were sitting in that pew all those years. And again, our story is one that God's not looking for availability. And so we love to share our story and be an inspiration. And so, again, if people are interested in that, we just want them to know that we're available.
Great. Now, let me ask you this. Are there any geographic limitations on that? Because our viewers are, our viewers are actually worldwide. We've got faithful viewers in Australia and whatnot, but certainly all over the United States. And it costs money for you to get there, but any thoughts on that? I just didn't want you, I didn't know if you were thinking, you're talking to people just in Mississippi. You're not.
No, I didn't think I was. And right now we have driven as far as, we're based out of Florida when we're back, but we have gone Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Maryland, Virginia. We will drive wherever the opportunity opens up. What we do is we do logistically try to route ourselves to where we're not just driving 8 hours to speak one time and then turn around driving 8 hours. So what we do is, as the interest build, for example, if I'm going to be over in Alabama, I try to set up Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. And even if there's some opportunities during the week, we've had some folks that have been down here that they went back and they got with their missions committee or people in their church and they said, hey, Gary Pate's going to be here from Ecuador. I'm going to have a little snack time at my house Tuesday night at 6, and I want to invite whoever wants to come. So, you know, we try to take advantage of that logistically, geographically, to where if we're coming to an area, we will try to maximize our exposure as much as possible. But that's a great question.
That makes sense. Okay. Well, that's all the questions I got. You got any questions? Anything else before we wrap it up?
Nah, man, we loved having Corey down here. He was a blessing. He never complained. I don't say that about everyone that comes, that it's a blessing having them or a pleasure having them, but Corey was a blessing to have. And, you know, so again, we hope Corey will come in the future. And Tommy, you and Patty as well, man, we'd love for you to come and touch and see what we're doing. And that would be a blessing to us as well.
Well, we hope to make that happen. And by the way, that's Corey is very well known for not complaining. That's what he never complains. Now, he may grumble under his breath and we don't know it, but I don't think he does. We're very, very proud that he's our son. We're proud of all of our children. We somehow lucked out. You know, we got it certainly wasn't us, you know, and we just another grace and mercy of Christ that our kids turned out as outstanding as they have, and never had to bail any of them out of jail, and they're just.
I can relate, brother. I feel the same way. I'm so blessed. Our two children have never given us any trouble, and again, I don't know how much credit I can take for that. I just thank the Lord that He's blessed us.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Gary, I have thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm sure our viewers have too. And, you know, the great thing about these videos is they're evergreen. The very first videos that we posted on our YouTube channel back in 2012 are getting views every day. And I'm still getting comments on those videos. And so this video is going to be evergreen. And so I pray that you'll be getting emails from people. You know, I'm hoping that 50 years from now, Pate Ministries getting emails from people, and they're going to have to say, "Look, Gary's dead, but now, you know, Gary's going on to glory, but now we've got his grandchildren are operating the ministry." And I mean, that's possible because as long as YouTube is up there, this video is going to be there.
Well, you know, Brother Tommy, the thing is, too, one thing that we have always believed in is we believe the nationals can reach their people better than we can as gringos. And so we have three, Corey can tell you, we have three Ecuadorians who work with us full time. One young man is 22, the young lady 24, and another young lady 21. And like I say, when we go home for 3 months, they continue to do this. So our goal is to continue to raise up the Ecuadorians to do this. With that being said, we have to facilitate them. So in other words, when we leave, we have to give them our vehicle to drive or find someone to drive them. We have to pay the gas money. We have to buy the snacks and the cookies and the Kool-Aid. So our goal is, this is not our work, this is God's work. And our goal is to continue to raise up the Ecuadorians and let them reach their own people. So it's not a short-term thing in my vision. And certainly we don't want to get in God's way, and we want to be in God's will. So yeah, another good point made by yourself.
Good deal. All right. Well, viewers, thank you for hanging in with us. Hope you found this as interesting and as stirring as we did. I know many of you will. And as I mentioned to Gary, you can look down in the description of the video and you'll have all the links necessary to hook up with Gary and Dina and Pate Ministries and For the Children Ecuador. And I'm just believing that there's folks out there got some money burning a hole in their pocket that would love to put it to kingdom use and put a floor down and get some walls up to protect these folks from the elements, and then also maybe a good number of you who would like to, I hate to say sow into a ministry because that's what the freaks on the TV say. So, but they want to help fund this ministry on an ongoing basis, and we're gonna provide you with a way to do that. So Gary, thanks for joining us. Everybody, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time at Alderman Farms.